Hey everyone, it's Alan over at Cobblers Plus, and in today's video we're going to be working on a pair of Edmonds McClains. So come join us and check out the interesting job that we're going to be doing on it. It's going to be very interesting. Alright everyone, thank you again for joining us. Like I mentioned, we're going to be working on these Edmonds here, and we're going to do a number of things, and after we're done with it, they're being shipped off to a gentleman who's going to do a custom dye job on them. If you remember one of the previous videos I did on a pair of Edmonds, they were a pair of players and suede, what were they? Strawfoots, that's what they were. Pair of players and a pair of strawfoots. It was a video of two pairs that I was working on, and this is actually the same guy here, and he's wanting something interesting done on them. So in the start, I'll kind of name off what he wants. So he wants this, obviously on our end we're going to be resoling these guys. We are doing, let's see, a yellow top stitch up here. So we're going to be replacing the Welt, obviously, because he wants new Welt that will be a navy color, a yellow midsole, a black Dainite sole, and then a yellow bottom stitch. So yellow and blue are kind of the main featured colors in this, and yeah, so it's going to be an interesting one for sure. The yellow midsole was kind of a pain to work on getting my hands on because they don't really make a yellow midsole, so I worked with one of my suppliers, and we figured out through an orthopedic company, and we got a sheet basically, so it wasn't like a pre-cut pair or anything. It ended up being like a sheet of high density, what was it called? I forgot what it's called, but it's like a extremely high density type of almost foam, but it's so dense that it's actually, after testing it out, it's almost same comparability as our regular midsoles. I was like, whoa, that's definitely some dense stuff. So definitely an interesting one for sure. But yeah, that's what we're going to be doing on these guys from today. Now some of you might be saying, oh, these aren't worn out. Actually, they definitely need some resoling on them. You can see the toes are worn out. There's a minor split right here starting to occur between the Welt and the sole. So whoever had these before this gentleman definitely did a little bit of a number on them, and it's regardless time to resole them now, because they're in the hands of this guy who likes the craziness. He can do whatever he wants to them, which is awesome, because that's what a lot of guys do. They actually buy used pairs of shoes, and then they send them to places like us, and they have a number of customized jobs and things done to them. Now we're going to go ahead and get started on tearing these down. So I'm going to do kind of like a fast forward on it so you can just watch and see. Otherwise I'll end up blabbering just way too long. You've seen me tear down Edmonds plenty of times, but it seems like a number of you still want to watch it. So I'm just going to fast forward it, play some music in the background. Hopefully you like my music of choice to kind of play in the background. Obviously for, reasons of, legal issues, I can't play famous music whatsoever. It has to be something that won't get me in trouble, in other words. But sit back, relax, enjoy it. But before you do, give me a thumbs up if you like my videos. The thumbs ups help apparently with YouTube's algorithm to share the video a little bit more frequently, and also subscribe if you haven't already. But otherwise, get a nice cup of tea, coffee, something stronger, cigar, or whatever else you want to hang out with, and enjoy the show. But for now, we're just going to take them apart, and then throughout the video I'll stop and talk about it real quick, and we'll go. Alright everyone, so I started taking apart the other shoe actually over here, but I'm gonna have to kind of restart it, at least for the video part, because I started taking it apart last night before closing, and I thought I'd make it perfect timing and everything, but I got interrupted unfortunately, and I wasn't able to stay long enough to be able to finish it out. And so I'm going to kind of restart that portion of the video with taking this apart this morning, and continue on throughout the day with certain steps on there and go from there. That's one of the downsides sometimes of recording videos like this. Sometimes you get interrupted and it takes a little while to actually do something for a pair that's getting a video done on it. And it's morning right now, so I'm a little groggy. That's why I sound a little funny, but you don't have to listen to me too much longer, so we're going to start fast forwarding and taking these apart. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alright everyone, so we've got majority of the cork cleaned out at this point. It's just going to be easier if I get in there and sand out at least portions of it. The cork that Alan Edmonds uses, it's called hot cork method, and it's kind of, it's sticky. It's really annoyingly sticky and stuff like that. So this is the older version of the cork. I took apart this other one here like that, and it's good stuff, but you know, some of the more annoying things for me, I don't know why, it just bugs me all the time, but little gaps like that, and it's not something you really feel or anything, but it bugs me, and I have no idea why. It just really does. But from the look of this shoe here that we've taken apart so far, it looks like this welt has been repaired before. And because this still looks like it's original factory soles and everything on these guys, yeah, they're still original factory. I don't think they've been recrafted, but it looks like the welt, you can see this strand here, means that their machine ended up, the Goodyear welt machine that stitches on the welt, ran out of thread or something, and they had to stop, put a knot in there and everything, kind of tie it down, and kind of reload the machine with new thread, and then continue on with the rest of it and everything. Just thought I'd kind of point that out. Kind of interesting little thing. You don't see it too often. It's every now and then. You see that strand right there, because usually they start on the back end here. Like if we find the split, there's that split right there in that welt. See that? And then you can see the knot right here, and that's where, sorry, I got interrupted there. But basically what they did was they started stitching the welt here, and then when they got to this point right here, they still had the welt in the machine, but the thread ran out, so they had to stop the machine, put a knot in there real quick, reload the thread, and get it to start stitching again, basically. So just thought it'd be a little bit of a fun fact if anybody might be wondering ever what kind of stuff goes on, because that's normal. It's one of those things that can occur whether you're doing hand welting or you're doing Goodyear welting or you're stitching the sole on. Thread can run out, thread can rip too on the machine. Sometimes the machine goes a little haywire and just kind of misaligns the needle or something just a little bit and rips the thread. That could have been the case too, where the thread itself just ended up ripping. Things happen. And it's nothing majorly structurally damaging or weakens the material. Only time I've noticed that it really weakens it are sometimes like when the uppers are stitched around in these areas, that if you have thread coming apart sooner than anticipated or sooner than it should, in most cases I've noticed that's actually from when the sewing machine gets to the end of the bobbin, and so the stitches aren't quite as tight, and then the stitches kind of come undone a little more easily. Doesn't seem to happen so much with welt areas though, whether it's the sole being stitched on or here, just because that's a thicker thread and there's a little more tension that the machine itself puts on there, where these threads for the upper, they're thinner, and the machine can only put it on so much tension onto it because of how much thinner the thread is. So I thought I'd point that out. One last thing real quick. You saw me using the toluene here. It's a solvent to deactivate the adhesives. Obviously these shoes are going to be re-dyed. Usually if it's a shoe that is not getting the uppers touched as far as like new coloring or dyes or anything like that, or if it's a dark color, or I mean a light color of any kind, we usually don't use a solvent. But since we're going to be shipping these off to a gentleman who's going to be re-dyeing them regardless, I thought using the solvent might just make it a little bit easier, and it's not going to cause any kind of harm. Plus we're going to be scrubbing these down anyways, since the owner of these shoes is not the original owner of them, and that way it'll be like a brand new pair for him. So let me run this to the sander real quick, and next we'll work on removing the welt here. So I'll be back in just a minute. Alright, so I've tried getting here, sanding it up a little bit, but I think the remaining little bit of cork here will kind of fall out during the rest of the process, and anything usually that's left behind is not an issue anyways, because we're going to do some thorough cleaning as well. So it's going to remove any kind of salt or sweat or anything like that, as well as again, majority of this is going to fall out during this whole process, in other words. But at this point, the more I dig, the more I'm going to damage this gemming, which is that white right there. And if I really start digging too much, it ends up being a little more of a problem in the long run of things. And we got to make sure to plan for the future on shoes when we recraft them, because we want these shoes to last as long as possible. And I've seen Allen Edmonds last 3-4 generations, so why cause damage that can shorten the life expectancy? Now, the gemming can be replaced down the road, but why do that when this thing is still perfectly intact and you can keep as many original parts as possible that are still in really great shape? So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and take apart the welt, and I'm just going to be using a blade like that there. So let's sit back, relax. All right, everyone. So you saw me picking out the old stitches, all that sticking out over here. These guys. Those are the stitches that hold the welt down, and I was just using where the tool go, little pick tool like that. And there's that old welt. Now this welt did come apart on me because it looks like there was a connection point. You can see it skived right there, and it was connected like that, nice and flush. And that's actually very normal. Don't freak out if yours ever starts to come unglued a little bit. You have like a little piece coming up. It happens. I mean, you can't get a continuous strip of welt like that constantly. It's just not possible to always have consistent lengths of welt that have no break points, in other words. So just wanted to point that out to everybody that may have a pair of shoes and you notice that little area somewhere that comes unglued or comes up. Just a little bit of contact cement will fix that up. Or if you're having them repaired or recrafted or anything like that, usually your cobbler will touch it up if the welt isn't being replaced. But in this case, we are replacing the welt anyways, so it doesn't make too much difference. If I grab my pliers here. Now at this point, I'm just gonna pull out all these stitches. We've got to make sure to clean them up. That's what I meant by a lot of this cork is gonna also get cleaned up as well, along with other steps of the process that we couldn't get to. And I got to do the same thing to the other shoe. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the other shoe taken care of as well, and I'll be back when we're doing our next step. And the next step is one of those that nobody really ever sees, but it makes me feel good inside knowing that I did something to the shoes that nobody really notices or sees or anything like that. And I'll let you check it out because you're my subscribers. You watch my videos. I appreciate everyone watching and enjoying the videos. If you're not subscribed, definitely make sure you subscribe. And if you are already, give me a thumbs up, because apparently YouTube has some kind of formula that the more thumbs ups I get, the better the channel grows, in other words. So if you'd like to see this channel grow more, definitely make sure to hit that thumbs up button. But in the meantime, let me go ahead and finish out that other shoe, and we'll see you back in just a few. Alright, everyone, so I did talk to the gentleman who's going to be doing the dye work on the uppers, Alberto, and so he did mention it'd make it a little bit easier for him if I strip down the edges a little bit. And so I've been going through with some rubbing alcohol. This is 91%, and just cleaning off the edges because squirted all over the place. It's going to make it a lot easier to at least dye around the welt. He's going to go ahead and take care of the rest of the shoe because it's kind of a pain, in all honesty, to scrub these things down all around. But I'll at least get underneath where the welt is so that when he's working on them, he's able to get a nice fine brush, finer than that, and get in there very gently without actually affecting the welt. But next thing I'm gonna have, I've got the welt cut out here, and this is a neutral color, so I'm gonna have to go through and dye it and everything to make sure that we get that navy blue color, because they don't really make the welt standard with navy blue, and it takes a lot of elbow grease, so I'm not really going to take up too much time with that. So let me go through the shoes here, get the welts taken care of, and I'll be back in just a little bit. I'll let you check out what the welt looks like, at least, that I'm going to be working on. So we'll see when it's time to work on that welt. Alright, everyone, so obviously we got these all dyed up. Use the Phoebing's light blue on these, even though we're going to be doing navy on it. I noticed that when you actually use the navy blue dye and then combine that with finishing, bump the stand there, but when you combine that with something to finish it, like we use the Seraphim cream in the navy blue color, it turns out extremely dark, and we still want to be able to show a little bit of that blue. And you can really see that that's blue. That one hasn't had anything except for that Phoebing's dye on it. Or this one, however, it's darker, but it's actually a little bit more of a navy color, considering the fact that, you know, it would have been almost black if we used the navy blue dye in that Phoebings or Saphir or whatever dye it may be. It just turns out darker all the time, so I end up going with the lighter base coat always, and then finish out with the dark. It's always a lot easier to darken something than it is to try to lighten it, and every time I've experimented with these leathers here like that are unfinished, you use navy blue and then use navy blue again, it turns out dark, almost black. So not always the best of things to have going on, but I'm gonna grab my rag here real quick, and it's quite literally just taking the cream and just basically working it into that top area. Now I'm only doing this for the top area. This is the top of the welt that's going to be visible. The bottom we didn't do, just because obviously that is the area that's going to be roughed up and going to be glued. I did do the bottom with the alcohol-based dye. Again, keep in mind that it's alcohol-based dye, so it's not going to get in the way of the adhesive at all. Or the cream, however, if we put it on the bottom, will get in the way of the adhesive, and we don't want that. Touched up the very side edge here also with the dye, but I did not do it with the cream, just because once we have the sole on and everything, we're going to be refinishing it and stuff like that, and it's just gonna, you know, end up being one of those things where it's going to come off anyways, because we're going to have to sand it and trim it and all that kind of stuff. And so we don't want to, you know, have to take the time to put it on and then it's going to come off anyways on these very edges for that cream. But again, the dye I put a little bit on there so that it kind of soaks into the leather and penetrates at least deeper, in other words. So that's basically what we did with those. I'm going to let these sit and dry for a little bit, because I want that wax and the Seraphim cream from Saphir to kind of dry just at least a little bit. Otherwise it's just too soft at the moment. And be back in a little bit to soak them in some water and get ready to stitch them. So we'll see you in a few. Alright everyone, so I'm going to throw my glove on. Stitching the welt on these ones. I already did the first one, just to kind of give you an idea. Actually, it doesn't look too bad with that color and the navy blue there. I don't know, I might have to try that out on a pair of my shoes. I like that brown color there, that medium to light brown, and the blue welt. I don't know, I kind of like it. What do you guys think? Comment down below. But got this other shoe here started up already. The other shoe that I already did, I did that yesterday. It took me like all day to do that because stuff was just going off all over the place. Alright, like I said, yeah, I don't know where I was at. So the other shoes I was stitching, it took me like all day yesterday. It was just like all day, some form of interruptions or something was going on. I had a phone conference that I had to go through with and stuff. Oh, I got a puppy here, a little Petunia. You guys want to see a little Petunia? Petunia! Hey! Petunia! Hey! Little puppy. There you go. Hey! Hi! Hi.
You little nub.
Yeah. I already forgot where I was at. But constant interruptions, basically like a puppy coming in. So I could not end up getting those ones stitched up in a timely fashion, but let me fix the camera here. Thought I'd show you guys at least a portion of stitching it. I've done this a number of times, but some people like to watch it, so what I'm going to end up doing is just kind of fast forwarding it. Oh great, my strand got tangled up around the camera base, so, and I have to wear a glove because all that tension, tightening everything down is brutal on the hands, and I had a number of welts I had to stitch, so you can see all that right there. It's already starting to get ripped. That's from pulling that thread so tight. That's why hand stitching thread is much better than a machine also, because you get that really good tension. But let me go ahead and kick it into fast forward and yeah, just sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alright everyone, so we're down to the last stitch, but I'm going to take off my glove at this point because as you can tell there's quite a bit still left over. I always prefer to leave it a little bit long just because you never know, something manages to happen. I know some cobblers that will take the old welt, stretch it out and cut it exact and perfect, and almost every time there's an issue with it just being just a hair too short sometimes, and it drives me nuts. So I prefer actually adjusting the length when the welt is already basically on here and everything. So I go a little bit longer. The way I do it, before I get through the last few stitches, make sure everything's all lined up, mark it up with a pen on one corner where the welt had started, and come on, the other one, if I can see it. Okay, there we go. So I got that. Grab a scrap piece of leather, place underneath, and because we have to cut through it, I don't want to end up cutting the shoe, so that's why I got this scrap piece of JR leather. That was a little bit of a extra piece. You can see we use it for punching holes in belts, so there's like little markings. I've cut some other welts already on it. And then, right where our markings are, I go just a little bit more than what my marking is. And it's always easier to just shorten it a little more if I need to. But when you lay them out perfectly, they should be kind of almost pushing up against each other, the two ends, in other words. That's what really seals up that corner there nicely. So that looks like it sits there perfectly, actually, right there. So you can definitely still see the seam there still, but that's because it's not stitched down. And yeah, definitely helps a lot. Let's see where the original holes are. We got one of our guys in here, when he replaces welts, he always measures it perfect in the beginning compared to the old welt, and then a lot of times something happens where it's just a little bit too short, and at that point you have to almost like make a decision whether you are going to undo the welt and redo it all, or if you have to splice a new piece in. And yes, splicing is very common, and it's not bad per se, because these welts, they're not all a single piece of leather ever, like ever. There's always a little section where the leather was spliced. I think even this one here, right there, there's a little splice there which isn't noticeable. And what happens is you just take the extra piece that you need to splice in there, you bevel it on one end, and then you take the welt that's already stitched down, unstitch it just a little bit, and splice it in the opposite direction. Glue the two ends together, and you do gotta give it some time to cure, so it really sets you back, in other words, when you have to do that kind of stuff. So I prefer to do a little extra. I mean, definitely seems like a waste there of welt, but this would be perfect to save actually as a sample piece for if anybody decides down the road they want to have blue welt, and then I can show them, like, here you go, there's a sample right there for you if you want to take a look at it. Maybe run a couple little stitches of colored thread through it or something, give some kind of perception of what options might work and all that kind of stuff. Oh, come on. I'm on the last stitch right now, and there we go. We have to, the last hole you overlap basically with the original, or the first stitch that you put into the shoe, and I kind of did it a little wrong. Me with my blabber mouth here, I have to pull it back out. The goal of the last one is you have to leave the strand fairly long, because you're not actually pulling it all the way through to the outside of the welt. Just like that, you still have to have a loop on each side here. So the goal of it is this outside strand that's on the outside of the welt, or not on the inside of the shoe area there. Pull it through the loop, give it some slack, in other words. And now this inside loop that you created and the strand that's connected to the bobbin, pull it, and you pull that outside loop that's been going on the outside of the welt area like that into the inside. Now we just cut off the ends. Wrap that up to get it out of the way. And now, I hate this part because my hands are so beat up. I got like little cuts from doing so many welts and everything. Tighten it down nicely because this is a wax thread, so it holds up very nice if you do just one knot for a split second and then a second knot, and it's perfect in there. But regardless, even though I have it double knotted, I still like to take a little dab of super glue. This is one that we use often because it works very well on certain rubbers and leather materials too. Except the tips are never cleaned up. Try to keep them clean, but I always get a little bit of residue and it gets in the way. Just a little dab like that in there. And now we just trim up that extra little bit. And I like to leave just a little bit of the knot showing, visible. I'll show you real quick. Just like that right there. See that knot sticking out? Because it's kind of an indicator, in other words, that eventually if the welt ends up, lining up so perfectly, and you can't even tell where the beginning and the end is, that knot will indicate it, at least for us. While this welt also is still a little damp, I'm going to go ahead and pull this over because I'll show you. Here on the toe area, you can see how it's all wrapped up and rolled up on the back of the heel a little bit too. So, easier to do it on last. Sorry, I had a package come in, but yeah, so I just pull this welt back up this way and let it kind of dry, just air dry that way. And that way it's kind of already in position the way it's supposed to be. Otherwise, once it's completely dry after we soaked it in some water, it still wants to try to crack a little bit and everything. And we have it conditioned already with that Seraphim cream nicely, but still, when the water tries to evaporate too quickly, it tries to pull some of that nutrients out along with it. Now, obviously, the conditioning, we can't do much about that right now because we still got to be able to adhere stuff to the bottom here, and we're going to rough that up. But if you put a conditioner on there, it makes the welt just a little too oily, and so the sole won't bond to it as well. And yeah, we don't want that to happen. But at this point, we're kind of done with this. I've got a little bit more cork to clean up in some of these areas. The awl that I was pushing through did clear up some of these spots a little bit better. So now I can scrape that up some more. And because these had, I want to grab them here real quick, had these little things in here, and some people call them a shank or something like that. They're not really technically a shank. They do fall into the category of a shank technically, but in reality these guys don't work as a shank at all. All they really are is there they are. All they really are is kind of like just a padding, in other words, that the gripper nails can go through if they go deep enough, and it looks like this one it didn't go through deep enough. And since we're putting a Dainite sole, which is a little bit on the softer side, even though we'll have a midsole, it's definitely a good idea to put a shank in there. Edmonds tends to use a wood shank like this one right here. It still has a little bit of cork left over in the glue that they used. And I could use this guy, but the problem is they do still have a tendency to crack, and we don't want that, especially because this shoe is getting so much done, and this gentleman's probably not going to be resoling them anytime soon because they're going to be such a unique shoe. He's not going to be wearing it daily, in other words. So if it's for daily purposes, fine. The shank is in wood like this is fine, because when it's time to resole them, it'll just be taken out, tossed, and replaced, and usually it's replaced by a metal one. So what we're going to do to make sure that we have everything proper, we're going to fit this steel shank in here. Alright everyone, as you had seen, gone ahead and gone through all around with the channeling. Got the edges sanded up and stuff right now, but at this point I'm going to go ahead and use this little piece here and just kind of clean up that very edge here just a little bit, because what happens is, if I can get it in the right direction here, happens is the very corner of the welt, man, that's a tough, of the welt right here, it kind of curls upward during the sanding process just a little bit, and it does get in the way sometimes of, one, the stitcher, and two, it just looks a little bit choppy sometimes. So just a matter of cleaning it up. Now obviously it's taken off some of the bluing, and you can see a little bit of that leather kind of poking through, even though we had this thing dipped in dye almost, like there was quite a bit of dye that we put on, but we're gonna have to be touching it up anyways regardless. So I'm gonna clean this up for now. If I don't clean this up beforehand, it has a tendency to really catch in that stitcher all the time when we're stitching the soles. Come on, get this out of the way. And then it makes it look a little bit cleaner. There isn't really much of the leather coming up here, just a smidge. Sometimes we have to sand it down a fair amount, and then you get like quite a bit of a leather that's kind of sticking up, all funny. Almost. Certain angles, certain spots, it's easier in certain directions and stuff to do it. But get that chunk out of there. There we go. Oops, there goes that piece. Alright, so I don't know if the camera will catch it there. You can see that kind of lip sticking up maybe a little bit there. Where on this one, we had taken it down a little bit. And obviously these are going to go through a little more sanding, but because we did a majority of the sanding already, that way it's going to make this a lot easier of a job to do. The other thing also is we were planning to try to save and reuse these heel bases, but when I started looking closer, these things are so wonky. It is nuts. I mean, geez, these things are wonky. I mean, I don't know if you can see that, but one is wider than the other. Right there, look at that huge gap there. Look at all that. They're just so wonky. I mean, yikes. So these things are not good. So we're just going to use a JR chunk. Took this out of our sheet there. JR leather. We're going to get this thing built up because we don't really exactly need too much. Usually these Dainite heels are so thick that typically one layer of leather is plenty enough. Usually with the original Outnet and heel bases, they take out basically that little black piece anyways when it comes to putting on the Dainite heels, and that's very close there. So I may need one more thin layer at least of the JR and then build that up. But once I have everything put together, you know, we'll see how the pitch and angle is and everything like that, and kind of take it from there. But for now, I'm gonna go ahead and finish out the other shoe here. I'm gonna sand this edge right here. This is gonna be that first layer that I glue on here, and do a little bit of coloring on that to give it a little bit of a pleasing aesthetics basically, and take it from there. So let me get ready for stitching though. I'll let you guys see the stitching with the heel base. I'll kind of do that portion off camera a little bit because it's a number of things I want to do to this one here in particular, but I'll let you check it out when it's on the shoe. So it'll be kind of like a mini surprise, but most of you can probably guess at least some of what's going to be done to it. So let's go ahead and continue on to the stitcher after I do this section. Alright everyone, so we've got the Dainite sole, the yellow midsole and everything on there. Everything's channeled nicely. Now it's time to stitch. Now this gentleman requested to do kind of like a back and forth type of stitch. Well, not back and forth, but a back and forth color variation. So we've got the blue, we've got the yellow, got black. Again, already explained that situation there. But we're going to do a yellow stitch on the top and then a yellow stitch on the bottom as well. So it just looks like it goes back and forth between the color transition. So spray it down and get ready to stitch. Alright everyone, so I just took this out of the oven. Now I'm not going to show you the other side quite yet, but I did build up the heel base onto the top lift already because I'm trying to do the inside brister, which is on the inside here, in a certain type of way, and it was only going to work if I built up the heel base beforehand. Now I usually like to put a layer of leather first on here and start building it up layer after layer, but it wasn't going to work for these, and so it does take a little more time and a little bit more effort, but you get it done right and everything, it's still going to work phenomenally. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and show you, because I gotta get this on here because it's nice and warm right now. I took it out of the oven, gotta stick it on there. Voila, got navy blue and yellow there lined up a little bit. There we go. All right, beautiful, just like that there. I don't know, can't get it much closer to the camera without it knocking it a little bit, but I gotta go run this to press and stick it on there quickly while it's still warm and get this to start curing, and then I'll be back over in a little bit to start sanding. So I'll see you in just All right, everyone, so I've got the shoes already to Alberto and everything. A lot of you who are in a number of the shoe enthusiast groups on Facebook and on Instagram as well may have already seen the shoes, and if you follow the shoesnobblog.com, also you may have seen a little bit of an article that Justin posted about it. But you can see behind me, there's the finished product. I'll be posting pictures of it at the end of the video of what Alberto did on there. I'll leave his links in the description for his Facebook and Instagram, as well as the link to the post here in the Shoe Snob blog by Justin FitzPatrick to check out as well. Thank you, Justin, for that awesome post that you did, and thank you, Alberto, as well, for the awesome finished product that you did as well. Phenomenal work, and you know, I just wish you were a little bit closer to us, then we'd be able to work on it face to face and check out the progress of it. But regardless, definitely awesome project to do. We have a few other projects on the way right now. Me and Marcus are actually working on one. We were so inspired by it. Marcus is a Michigan guy, so he loved this shoe a lot. But obviously, I am a Colorado native. I was born here, raised here, so we're gonna take it up to NFL now. We're gonna be doing something home team color here for us, but stay tuned for that video. In other words, that one's going to be a bit of a longer project because there is a particular sole brand that I'm waiting to get in that's going to match that color phenomenally, but I'm not going to talk about that much more. You'll have to stay tuned for that one. Make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell icon to be notified as soon as that video is out. But in the meantime, definitely check out the pictures closer. You can go to either the shoesnobblog.com to be able to see the pictures up closer, or you can check out Alberto's pages down below. Make sure you subscribe to all of theirs as well, and follow them on Facebook and Instagram, and see what kind of cool stuff they're all posting. Between Alberto, who's been blowing up in the shoe community by avid enthusiasts. He's been doing some cool custom dye work and everything. And then obviously also by Justin FitzPatrick, who has his own line, and his Shoe Snob blog, theshoesnobblog.com. Definitely a lot of cool information, a lot of interesting stuff he posts on there. So you definitely want to check all these guys out and follow them. And yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you, gentlemen, as well for being part of this project. In other words, between Alberto and Justin. Justin kind of surprised us on that one. We did not expect to get posted on his blog, but still, thank you if you see this, Justin. And yeah, just thanks for watching as well, everybody, and hope you enjoyed it. Questions or comments, leave them down below. Again, subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, and share the video as well. Obviously, I know my videos are a little bit on the longer side, but I want to show you, everybody, the great detail that goes into it. You got to admire the fact that I can still fit these jobs that sometimes take a few hours worth of time to do into at least an hour or under in most cases. But again, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.